Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Choosing curriculum can be one of the trickiest things for homeschooling families, especially those who are completely new to the game and don't know anything at all about it. So today I thought that I would share with you what I look for in homeschool curriculum for my really big family. Curriculum is one of those things that can really get you overwhelmed when you are new to homeschooling, or even when you're not new to homeschooling, because there are so many choices, which, I'm sure 20 or 30 years ago, homeschooling families would have loved that because they did not have all the choices that we do today. But if you actually look at all of the different variety of resources that we have to choose from, it can actually be our downfall because we just get stressed out to the point that we're not sure what it is that we should really be getting for our kids. And so a lot of people always ask me for advice on choosing curriculum. And I did do a video on that probably about 2 years ago, just a short video with some tips on choosing curriculum. And the thing is that it's really hard to give advice on choosing curriculum because every family is different. Homeschooling philosophies are different. Homeschooling methods are different. And the learning style of children, there are so many different ways that they can learn. It's really hard to just be able to pinpoint exactly what another family needs when I'm not there watching them. So today, what I thought, instead of giving you some more tips on choosing curriculum for yourselves, I thought that I would share with you what I look for in homeschool curriculum and explain to you why I look for those qualities. So first of all, most of you who have been here before know that I have 11 kids. This year, I am homeschooling 8 children because my oldest son, he graduated from public school. My second and third oldest graduated from homeschool, and now I still have all of the rest still learning at home together. So when I am looking for homeschooling curriculum, there are just a couple of things that are really important to me, other than the fact that there is a siren coming. Stuff like this always happens every time that I do my videos. So, gotta love living on a really busy street. Anyway, so looking for homeschooling curriculum. First of all, when you have a big family, it is so important that you are able to just find things that are going to work together with multiple levels. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But that is just huge when you have a big family. If you are only homeschooling 1 or 2 kids, that might not be so important to you. But for me, that is one of the biggest things, is finding things that all of my kids can use together. So let's get started specifically on what I'm looking for. So the first thing that I am not looking for on homeschooling curriculum is I will not get anything that is aligned with Common Core. Common Core is a disaster. It is confusing and it teaches moral ambiguity. So that is a no-no in my house. So a lot of times when you see curriculum that's, kind of touting that it's aligned with Common Core and they're looking at that as a good thing, to me, that is a flashing light saying, no, don't buy me. I won't buy anything that's aligned with Common Core. So the second thing that I'm looking for in homeschooling curriculum, I want a curriculum that is clear and concise. I'm not looking for a curriculum that takes pages and pages to explain something that could be said in a really short period of time. And I am not looking for something, especially in math books, that just continues to have repetition, and drills. A little bit of repetition it can be a good thing. Now the math books that I'm using with my younger kids is a Becca, and that has spiral-based learning in it. And so what you'll find in books like Becca with the spiral-based learning is that there is built-in review. So what that means is that each page will have different sorts of questions on each page so that the kids do start going over the things that they continue, I should say, to go over things that they have already learned. When I say that I am not looking for repetition, I have already had math books where the kids just have pages and pages and pages of the exact same thing. And I mean large amounts of problems. And my philosophy is that if your child knows how to do 10 problems and they're showing you that they can do it without any help, they don't need to do 40 and get frustrated, because chances are by the time that they start getting tired on those problems, they're going to start getting them wrong because they're going to be frustrated, and then it's going to look like they don't understand them. And that's not always the case. It's best to keep things short and simple, because that is when you're keeping your kids' attention. So to me, that's really important, is short and concise. And the repetitiveness, that can even go for grammar curriculum as well. I've already had grammar curriculum that was okay in every other aspect, but it would go over, say, prepositional phrases for 15 pages of exercises on prepositional phrases, and then 15 more pages on subject-verb agreement. And, that gets really, really boring, not only for kids, but for the parents who are having to check this or help their kids as well. So what I am looking for, again, I want something that is to the point. That's why I love dailygrams for grammar with my kids. Their lessons take like 5 minutes a day, but it goes over the same things each day. I see it's not very focused in, but it goes over the same thing each day. So the kids, again, have that built-in review, but it's not something that they're going to dread doing every day, because they're going to be doing 45 minutes of, the same thing over and over and over again. It's 5 minutes, and it is enough. Now, another thing that is really important in the clear and concise aspect of finding curriculum is even with literature-based curriculum. For example, like Beautiful Feet books. One of the things that I really like about Beautiful Feet books is that are these teachers' planners? No. They're called guides for literature packs. And what they do is they still tell you as the parent what you should be doing or what you could do each day for the lesson. But if you notice in these, hopefully this doesn't get out of focus again, the lesson suggestions are very short, they're very simple, they're very basic. I don't like curriculum that comes with all sorts of directions, all sorts of plans, all sorts of details. To me, that's extremely overwhelming. And when you're homeschooling a large number of kids, especially when you're doing them together, simplicity is the key. So the next thing that I look for with our homeschool curriculum is I really look for curriculum that incorporates living books rather than textbooks. If you're not sure what living books are, they are books that have been written by an author who really has a love for the subject. They can include things like historical fictions, they can include biographies, autobiographies, they can include what are called trade books, or those are the books that you find in the nonfiction section of your library. And I just have a few examples of those here. So first, here's Grandfather's Journey. So yeah, picture books can be living books as well. So Grandfather's Journey is actually one of the books in one of my Beautiful Feet book curriculums. So there are a lot of really good literature-based curriculums out there. As I mentioned like 5 times now already, Beautiful Feet books, there's Sunlight, and I know that Bookshark, there are others out there, but I just had to pause the video because of my darn cat. She always tries to make an appearance. But anyway, there is also Bookshark. That's also good for literature-based learning. And you don't have to buy a curriculum to incorporate living books. You can always just go to the library to get those sorts of books to learn with. But I really, really look to them instead of textbooks, because living books are more interesting. They're more complex. They are more in-depth than textbooks. Textbooks often give you just little snippets of learning, little glimpses into the different topics that they cover. And in our homeschool, I'm not interested in disjointed learning. I'm not interested in compartmentalized learning. I am interested in giving my kids an in-depth, extensive look at whatever topic we're covering. I want my kids to get the whole picture and not just a brief portion of it that is covered in one section. So I really do steer clear from textbooks, except for math and grammar. Other than that, we do not use textbooks at all. So the next thing that I look for in homeschool curriculum, I look for hands-on activities. And when I say hands-on activities, I mean that I'm looking for curriculum that incorporates actual physical hands-on activities. I see a lot of curriculum nowadays will advertise that they have hands-on activities, but what ends up happening is that the hands-on activities that they're referring to are actually like worksheets, or they might be like little mini books that you fold up and put together. And to me, that is not hands-on activities. That is more like table time, or just kind of sit down learning. To me, hands-on activities are things like making salt dough maps, or doing science experiments, or maybe going outside and doing some sort of physical activity that has to do with whatever they're learning, or maybe even like painting, or acting out maybe a scene in a book that you're reading. Those to me are hands-on activities, things that actually get your child up and moving, and just getting all of their senses stimulated, because that is really important. And that is one thing that I actually wanted to mention, is that it is really important to incorporate your child's learning styles into your homeschool curriculum. When you have a lot of kids to homeschool, though, you have two choices. You can either try to homeschool all of your kids individually and tailor it specifically to every single child, which in my case would take forever, or you could try to teach as many of your kids together as possible, but incorporate different styles of learning into your activities every day, so that every child gets a piece of something that they need, but then they're also getting exposed to and getting used to doing other things that they might not be so naturally inclined to do. So anyway, I just happened to think of that because of hands-on activities. But yes, I'm looking for something that has hands-on activities. They're fun. It keeps the kids interested. It keeps them active. A lot of times it gives them things to do that maybe once our school day is over, they might like it so much that they want to go back and do it again. You're not going to find that so much with worksheets. So yeah, actual physical hands-on activities. That's why I love CONUS so much. CONUS has lots of hands-on activities, and that is precisely why I use it and recommend it so much. Now, another thing that I'm looking for in homeschool curriculum for my family is I am looking for things that have either a Christian worldview, preferably a Christian worldview, or at the very least, a traditional worldview. I'm not interested in turning my kids into social justice warriors. I'm not interested in teaching my kids things that are morally ambiguous. I focus on truth in our homeschool, so that is really, really important to us, and that is why, as often as I can, I really do stick with either Christian worldview resources, or I even prefer books that were written maybe 1950 or earlier if I can get my hands on them. But what I have found is that the earlier something is written, the more it fits in to our worldview of, things being black and white. And so that is really important to me. Another thing that I look for is, I just realized that I never showed you the other living books that I had here. I'm like going everywhere today, but here's just some more examples of living books. This is an Usborne linked Encyclopedia of the Ancient World. And here is Pilgrim's Progress. That is another example of a living book. But anyway, yeah, I'm bouncing all around today. So I'm looking for things that are flexible. If something is written that it can only be done a certain way and you have to do it that one way, I'm not going to do it. I really like being able to make our curriculum work for us. And that is really important as a homeschool mom, or as a homeschool dad, as a homeschool parent in general. You've got to be able to tailor it to your family. And unfortunately, I have found that there are some curriculums that if you try to move away from the things that they are specifically telling you to do, like if you diverge in any way at all whatsoever, it it doesn't fit together anymore. And I don't like that. You know, I like to be able to do things the way that is going to work for us. So if it's not flexible, I'm not going to buy it. So for example, with Natural Speller, this is what we use for spelling. Now, in Natural Speller, they have, the author has all sorts of different activities that you can do for your kids with spelling. And they're great for some families. They don't work well for our family though. They're a bit too schoolish for our family. So what I do instead for Natural Speller is Natural Speller has fantastic spelling lists. So I use them just for the lists. I don't use any of the activities that are in the book. I use just the lists. If we had a spelling curriculum that you could only do it specifically as it was written, I would never use it. I need things that are flexible. Flexibility is so important in any homeschool. Now, another thing that is really important to me when I am looking for homeschooling curriculum, I don't want anything that was written for a classroom. And unfortunately, I've been finding that there are a lot of homeschool curriculums that if you actually sit down and either read the teacher's manual, which I try to avoid at all costs because they just complicate things and don't often add things. But if you try to read the teacher's manual, or sometimes even if you just read the curriculum itself, you would see that it is written more for a classroom and not an actual homeschool. And, you know, because a lot of times it will tell you things that you can do for group activities, and it will tell you to do things for centers, and just all of these different things that in my mind just scream out school, school, school. And I don't want my house to look like school. We're not trying to replicate a classroom. So if I see that it's really something that would be better off to be used like in a more traditional classroom setting, we would not use that here. And I probably wouldn't buy it, you know, unless I happened to get it thinking that it was something else and got it by mistake. But generally, I would not even buy something like that. And the last thing that I look for when it comes to homeschooling curriculum is, you know, I want it to have bang for its buck. You know, I really do. I prefer for things to be inexpensive. And the thing is that sometimes you might look at something and you might think, wow, that's really expensive. And then you automatically don't want to buy it. And there are a lot of homeschool curriculums out there that are way more money than what I would ever spend on any curriculum. But there are other curriculums that at first glance, you would think, oh my gosh, that's a lot. But if you actually look at what it entails, it's not. For example, CONUS. If you buy CONUS brand new on the website, I think it's about $110 for one of the volumes. And you might think, oh my gosh, that is really steep. But that one volume of CONUS covers all subject areas. All you have to do is supplement language arts and math. It encompasses for ages activities for ages kindergarten through 8th grade. It gives you book lists. It gives you vocabulary words. It gives you hands-on activities. Very often it even gives you things that you can photocopy and print out. And also it isn't just a one-year thing. CONUS curriculum can easily last 2.5, maybe 3 years for one volume. So if you think about it, if you're using it with a bunch of kids and you're using it for 3 years and it's covering all of these different subject areas and you're only spending $110 brand new, that is nothing. That is a drop in the bucket. And I have to say, I got the CONUS volume 2 that I use right now, I got it on Amazon for like $40. I mean, that's a steal. But if I would not have been able to find it there, yeah, I would have spent it. I would have spent the $110, the full price on it, because it is worth it. And you know, so that's really what you have to look at. Don't just look at the price tag of something. Now, obviously, if there's no way you could ever afford it, then yeah, look at the price tag. But if it's something where you could buy it, but you're just thinking you don't want to because it's too much, actually take a close look at what you can possibly get out of it. Or maybe even try talking to somebody who has used it, maybe read some reviews, because you'd be surprised. There are a lot of things that at first glance, you're like, wow, no way. But then you realize that, no, it is a steal. So anyway, I think that I actually touched on everything today. Those are the things that I look for in homeschool curriculum. Oh, and I never talked about multi-level learning. That's right. I did say that I was going to talk about that. That is one thing that, like CONUS and Beautiful Feet books and all of those curriculums, they are perfect for multi-level learning. So very often, I mentioned earlier that I only will get textbooks for like language arts, well, usually grammar and math, and we use this natural speller here. That is because that is what my kids do separately. Those are the only subjects that my kids do individually. All of the other subject areas like science and history and art and social studies and geography and all of that stuff, my kids do together. So it is really important that we get things that are good for all different levels, which is why CONUS is great, because it's for kindergarten to 8th grade. Now, yeah, sometimes you might have to make things a little bit more difficult for your older kids and a little bit easier for your younger kids, but they're all things that you can easily work together with your kids. Even Beautiful Feet books, one level might not encompass kindergarten through 8th grade with Beautiful Feet books, but you could easily incorporate Beautiful Feet books with like maybe 3 or 4 different grade levels. So that is something else that you should look for if you have a big family. Try to find things that you can teach all of your kids together, because then you have a family style schooling and it's really bonding, and it saves you time as the mom, and it's just such a more natural way for learning to happen. Because remember, homeschooling doesn't have to look like school. So that is something that I always tell everybody, because I think people get overwhelmed thinking that they have to just make everything look like a classroom setting. It doesn't have to look like that. School has only looked like that for like the past 150 years or so. Before that, kids just learned at home, and they didn't have this traditional school model that they thought that they were supposed to follow. So you don't have to either. So anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram, because YouTube has disabled my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave that link in the description box as well. And I hope you have a great day.